Greetings and welcome to another edition of Political Empire. I'm your host, Kim Pearsall with the Press Enterprise and PE.com. We're going to be talking about Sheriff Rod Hoop's exit from San Bernardino County, and then we're going to talk about how it's not really a good time to be an incumbent. And finally, we're going to cap this episode off with a routine by our modern-day Abbott and Costello. So first, Sheriff rides into the sunset. San Bernardino County Sheriff Rod Hoops has announced he's retiring at the age of 55. He'll be an executive fellow with the Police Foundation, a Washington, D.C. institute that researches police issues and assists law enforcement agencies. Hoops was first appointed in 2008 after then-Sheriff Gary Penrod retired and was reelected to a 4-year term in 2010. The sheriff receives about $225,000 in salary and another $217,000 in benefits. Hoops has already recommended a replacement, Assistant Sheriff John McMahon. And now we're going to talk about how it is really no time to be an incumbent, or at least it wasn't in this past election. The Baca dynasty is done and Bono Mack is out, so are other incumbents across the Inland Empire. And here to give us her take on this shift in the Inland Empire is our inland columnist, Cassie McDuff. Cassie, thanks so much for being here today. It was quite the election, and were you surprised at all by most of the races in which incumbents lost?
I was, Kim. I was very surprised on election night. The Inland Empire has been traditionally a Republican area with the exception of the Baca contest. Baca has been an incumbent since 1999, and his ouster really came out of the blue. He just spoke to him on the phone. He told me that $2.3 million was spent by a political action committee controlled by New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who took him on in terms of gun control, his stance against gun control, and painted him as someone who wanted to pollute the water when he says he actually fought pollution and got the perchlorate problem in Rialto addressed. He feels he was very unfairly treated by an out-of-state super PAC.
And as far as that spending, too, I think it was even more when you added up all of the spending that one super PAC did. It was, a few $1 million, which was at the very tail end of the election, too. It was the week before the election actually took place. So it certainly had some influence in this race and contest. In addition to Baca, though, there were quite a few other races in which this occurred. What do you think of those where incumbents didn't do quite as well as perhaps they may have expected?
Well, there are contests that are still undecided and very close. For example, Bob Buster, the county supervisor, whose challenger appears to be going to oust him. Mary Bono Mack was another big surprise on election night, losing to a newcomer challenger, a Democrat, and in addition, Bob Dutton, who was a very well-known state senator, had been the state Senate minority leader, was beaten by an incumbent congressman, but who had to move into the district in order to qualify and run in it.
Well, and as far as what these new faces do for the Inland Empire, we were talking in a prior episode about Ken Calvert. Now he's really the last man standing in Congress. And what does that do in terms of political influence? What does it do for the area to have so many new faces in some of these offices?
Well, in Congress, the Democrats will still be in the minority, but in the Assembly and the State Senate, where there were also Democrats elected from this area, it will give them influence where they do hold majorities, and so they'll be entering a majority party. That's a win for the area in terms of influence.
Well, and Cassie, finally, why do you think that perhaps incumbents didn't fare quite as well this year compared to prior elections?
Well, a lot of people say that there was a new voting bloc, a group that emerged with a lot of power were Latinos. Young people did get motivated to come out to vote. Some people believed before the election that they were not going to come out and vote, and they did turn out. And so I think the biggest factor in bringing Democrats into representation in the Inland Empire, however, was the Citizen Redistricting Commission. For years, this area had been untouchable. Incumbents were protected when the legislature was drawing the district lines. But this year, a nonpartisan commission drew the lines, and Democrats and Republicans were fairly equally represented among voters, and the Democrats took it this year.
True. Well, Cassie, thanks so much for the update that you provided today, and thank you for watching another edition of Political Empire. Before we go, though, we have something completely different. Riverside City Attorney Greg Priamos has apologized for whatever he said or didn't say, or for whatever he ordered or didn't order, before the RPD handcuffed and arrested a citizen who spoke too long at an October 23rd City Council meeting. And I know it sounds confusing, but it becomes crystal clear when we employ the Socratic method, more commonly known as, quote, Abbott and Priamos.
I see you expressed sincere apologies.
I certainly did.
For what?
For creating complications and problems.
What kind of complications and problems?
Well, the kind that led me to apologize for the issues and distractions.
Which issues and distractions?
The ones caused by my actions.
Now we're cooking. Which actions caused issues and distractions?
Distracting actions that may have created complications and caused issues.
Ah, forget it.
Well, that's easy for you to say.
What did you tell Officer Nick Sahagan?
I made a brief comment.
What kind of comment?
Attorney-client privilege.
You told him? Attorney-client privilege?
I can't say what I told him because of attorney-client privilege.
Officer Sahagan is your client.
I can't say.
You don't say.
I won't say.
Officer Sahagan says you told him to stop Karen Wright from going too long past the time limit.
Well, that's not entirely accurate.
You mean it's accurate, but not entirely?
Exactly.
What was accurate?
I can't say.
What part wasn't entirely accurate?
I won't say.
What can you say?
I can't say.
Your apology says, neither the city manager, senior city staff, nor any elected official directed me to speak with the officer regarding Ms. Wright. Is that right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you were acting on your own when you told Officer Sahagan to stop Wright?
Wrong.
Then what's right?
I can't say.
Why not?
It might create issues and distractions.
Which would lead to complications, problems, and another apology?
Well, I wouldn't say that.
What would you say?
I can't say.